Hi, hello, and if you're new to the channel, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Now this video is the third video in my series of 3 about things that I do on the River Thames in the summer. The first one was about Henley Royal Regatta, the second one was about Henley Festival, and this one is about the Henley Traditional Boat Show or Boat Festival. Now, after I posted the first video, I lost a lot of subscribers. The Henley Royal Regatta video didn't go down at all well. So I asked as part of the community section on my channel about whether or not I should post the remaining 2. And the results of that survey were, yes, post the next 2, 26%. No, please stick to Narrowboats, 40%. And I'm not really fussed, 35%. So the view of the people that took part in the survey was that I shouldn't bother posting the next 2. Anyway, I'd already recorded them, so I've decided to post them anyway. But thank you very much for taking part in that survey, because I now know that in future videos, I'm not to bother recording stuff that isn't connected with Narrowboats. So anyway, a big thank you to everybody who's part of the community system on YouTube for taking part in that survey. But having said that, please stick around because there is some great boat stuff coming up in this video. So let's go and have a look and see what's going on. So the Traditional Boat Festival is held in Henley-on-Thames in a meadow just outside the town between Fawley Court and Phyllis Court. It's directly opposite where the enclosures were, or the regatta enclosure was at the Henley Royal Regatta. Interestingly, the boat festival came out of the regatta because as part of the Henley Festival there used to be a sort of boat auction and people used to bring their fancy boats along, and you may have seen that in an earlier video. And the Traditional Boat Festival grew and grew and grew and sort of spun out of it. So out of Henley Royal Regatta we got 2 events. We got the Henley Arts Festival followed by the Traditional Boat Festival. So all of this is going on in July.
From the lower meadow away to your left as you came into the showground.
The Traditional Boat Festival is set up in the meadow across from the main enclosures of the regatta. Now this meadow during the regatta would have had corporate hospitality. All those tents are removed and then the pontoons are put in, and all the other tents that you can see here are erected for the Traditional Boat Festival. Along the bank you can buy ice creams, there are various food stalls, coffee stalls, cafes, there's even a pub. And in the tents you'll be able to buy everything from boating paraphernalia through to boats, other bits and bobs, all kinds of things, a few sort of collectibles, you name it, it'll be on sale there. You can even look at cars at the Traditional Boat Festival. It's not just all about boats, but the main focus of the festival is in fact boats, particularly traditional boats on the Thames. Now the Crooked Billet from Stoke Row actually sets a pub up down there that serves food all day and beer and drinks, and in the evening has a live band or bands on. Along the meadow there are numerous places to eat, little cafes, coffee shops, all kinds of things available.
Lovely that side, eh?
What I particularly like is you can go along and you can look at quite a few boats out of the water and just admire the craftsmanship that goes into building and maintaining these types of boat. I mean, look at this stunning canoe. Absolutely beautiful. And this year, because of the hot weather, we had a lot of wasps down at the festival, and I particularly liked one of the food vendors' improvised wasp traps. The sacrificial Danish. In some of the tents you'll find historical artefacts associated with boating. Here's a collection of steam engines. And there are also displays of general crafts and skills that may, or in some cases may not be associated with boating. Now, having explored the festival site, the next thing I did was I headed over to the Alaska. Now this is a steam powered boat and it's absolutely gorgeous, and for a small fee you can ride on it up the river. As I was waiting for the Alaska to depart, this crazy boat went by. Fantastic. The cruise on the Alaska lasts around 30 to 45 minutes and takes you from the boat festival site up the Thames towards Henley. The Alaska is a great way to see the town of Henley from the river. One delight for me is to approach Henley Bridge from the river, a stunning Grade 1 listed bridge. And only 2 weeks after Henley Royal Regatta, it seems odd to pass the now deserted and quiet boat tents. One of the real delights of passing up the river on the Alaska is to go through Henley Bridge. I've been through this bridge countless times, but it never ceases to amaze me. It is a truly, truly stunning, beautiful bridge. The Alaska continues on its way up the river, passing geese and fellow boaters and canoeists, and also one of the inhabited islands. I always fancied living in one of the houses on the island on the left of this shot, but it does get a little damp there in the winter with the flooding. And finally, as we approach the end of the island and Marsh Lock, oh look, a narrowboat there on the right, fantastic. I've still got narrowboats on this channel. As we approach the lock, the Alaska turns around and heads back downstream. An absolutely gorgeous day to be out on the river. It was just a shame that I wasn't on my narrowboat, the Grey Wagtail. The turn completed, we headed back downstream. Back down through the town towards Henley Bridge. Passing the regatta headquarters on the right. Through the bridge and past Leander and down the river towards Temple Island. And as we cruised down the regatta course towards Temple Island, I saw another narrowboat on the Thames. The Alaska then turned around and headed back up the river, past all the boats moored at the Traditional Boat Festival. It's a great way to see all the boats at the festival. After my cruise on the Alaska, I walked around the festival looking at the boats. And one of the delights at the festival each year are the little ships, the ships that went over to Dunkirk and rescued the BEF, the British Expeditionary Force. Looking at these little ships makes you realise what they undertook. Small craft going all the way over to France. There was also an original World War II military canoe on display at the festival this year. An interesting little fact about this canoe is that the outriggers are filled with ping pong balls, so if they got shot up they wouldn't sink because there were a lot of ping pong balls in there providing buoyancy. Very clever. In keeping with the little ships and the World War II canoe, there are also a number of vintage military vehicles on display at the boat festival. But I was really here for the boats, and there are some truly fantastic boats down at the festival. Beautiful boats. It makes you wonder how much work is needed to maintain them like this. The long thin boat more towards the centre of this shot is an umpire's launch. It's a steam powered umpire's launch, and I believe it was the first ever umpire's launch. Prior to this boat being built, rowing races were umpired from horseback.
Over an 18-month period.
What a cute little steam powered boat.
Forming the stem at 1:30, the synchronised slippers display team.
Another stunner.
Later on, after lunch, at 2 o'clock.
And I'm pretty sure I saw these two fantastic looking boats hosting picnics down the Henley Arts Festival the week before. If you like wood, varnish and brass and vintage boats, the Henley Traditional Boat Festival is a great place to go. There are some stunning boats of all shapes and sizes on display. There are also traditional rowing boats or skiffs at the festival. And one thing I object to at the festival are these boats, the Starcraft. Now these can't be vintage boats because I can remember these going up and down the river as a kid. And they can't be vintage surely, but they are. And I found two little gems of narrowboats at the festival. This one, and moored nearby this beautiful little tug. Now down at the festival I saw this houseboat. The previous week I'd seen it at Henley Arts Festival, and it's usually moored just downstream at Hambledon. Now this boat has got an interesting history. It is in fact a recent build, and the person who built it decided they wanted to build a houseboat that was like a house but also a boat. And when they'd finished building it, a number of people commented on the fact that it looked like a boat that was used by a chap called Taunt, who did one of the sort of first photographic sort of journals or books of the River Thames. He went up and down the River Thames in a boat very much like this in the 1850s or 1860s, I think, photographing the river.
Where we are delighted to present.
Now besides houseboats, you also get some sort of less common craft at the boat festival. This one was clearly built for speed.
Rescue range beneath that. Skin rescue range.
As were these incredibly small and quite dangerous looking little speedboats.
I'm not quite sure of the location, but if you find them, life happens. Skin. So do go along to Wood.
Personally, I wouldn't like to go on the water in one of these. They look quite terrifying.
Downstream. To your left, you come into the showground of the quirky.
As I said, you find a number of non-traditional craft down there, like this Hovercraft. And what about this? This is an interesting looking car. Is it a car or is it a boat? Why has this car got fenders on it? These are some quite odd looking cars. And if you look around the back you get a big clue as to what's going on. Two props on the back. Of course the military variant looks much more boat-like. But it's when you see them in the river that you really appreciate what's going on. But it does seem so wrong. I remember seeing vehicles like this on the Thames as a kid, and then it used to amaze me, and I must admit I did want one. I think they look great, but it does seem so wrong to see a car driving up the River Thames. Totally mad. But the scary bit is when they come to get out of the river. This just looks terrifying. And some of them do struggle a bit to get up the temporary boat ramp. Now this is an interesting amphibious vehicle. The chap built it himself. He wanted a motorhome that was also a boat. I think he's achieved that. Some of them do struggle to get out of the river. Nice wheel spin, and I like the umbrella. This one had to have a couple of goes. The military vehicle made it look dead easy. Now remember the guys we saw earlier with the World War II military canoe? Well, they took it out onto the river.
If you want, if you've never seen them coming out the water.
We also had a flyby from a Hurricane. These things are always difficult to film because the plane is so far away and just looks like a little dot in the sky. We were supposed to be getting a flyby from a Lancaster, but unfortunately that had to be cancelled due to a technical fault on the aircraft. Anyway, it was great to see the Hurricane fly over the festival. Love the sound of that engine. And again. Now, one thing that they did have down at the festival this year was a Standing with Giants display. Now, if you're not familiar with these are sort of cut out silhouettes commemorating the Second World War, and they have appeared around the UK and also at the beaches over in Normandy, and they're quite spectacular. The level of detail is amazing. And when you consider they're just a silhouette cut out of a metal sheet, it is quite remarkable the level of detail and the sort of lifelike quality they have. Now, it's not all boats down here, and you have to keep your wits about you. Behind the main tents that run along by the river, there is a section of the festival Showground where they have a collection of vintage cars and also sort of small stalls and shops selling a whole range of odds and ends, some connected with boating, some connected with cars, some just sort of odds and ends that you might want in your garden. Anyway, it's always worth going along that particular sort of road and having a look. The cars are spectacular, and there's some interesting stuff on sale in some of the little sort of shops and booths. In this area you'll find small boats for sale and boat related material, fixtures, fittings, all kinds of odds and ends. And even though it's a boat show, the cars are worth a look. They are in fantastic condition. However, I do object to some of them being described as vintage cars because my usual complaint, I can remember some of these being on the road, and I've been driven around in some of the types of cars that are on display. You can't really call some of them vintage, surely, can you? I mean, look at these Stellas. Beautiful, beautiful cars. And it's not just cars, there's also some vintage bicycles on display. And I'm going to object to this vintage bicycle. It's a chopper. Friends of mine had choppers when I was a kid and I was dead envious of them. It can't be vintage. And for me, if one thing sums up the festival, is this sign. The use of ish in the timings. Now that's the last of the 3 events that I try to attend on the Thames every summer: the Henley Royal Regatta, the Henley Arts Festival and the Henley Traditional Boat Show. Now if you found this video interesting, please give it a big like and a thumbs up, and on the screen now you will see a QR code that will take you through to a free newsletter about my narrowboat, the Grey Wagtail. And of course, if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching for this long. Bye for now.